At the family Christmas dinner, I was told, "You can eat in the car." The statement was thrown out like a bone, a command, not a suggestion. My brother Jacob sneered from the head of the table. "Why waste a seat on you?" The table erupted in short, sarcastic laughter. Not everyone laughed out loud, but everyone heard it, even Mom. She just bowed her head, pretending to dig into her plate. Dad raised his eyebrows for a moment, as if about to say something, then turned back to the phone in his hand. No one stood up, no one looked at me. No one asked if I was sad, if I was cold, if I felt abandoned, because they had already assumed I was an unimportant person, a lost daughter in a family that favored boys over girls. I stood still, holding the small, carefully wrapped presents in my arms. Presents I had spent hours choosing for each person in the silly hope that this year would be different. That maybe they would see me, or not. I glanced around the table. Every seat was taken. Even Mark, the cousin who'd stolen my savings in high school, had a seat. But not me. I wasn't considered part of it. Without another word, I walked over to the table and placed my gift right in front of Jacob. His eyes swept over me, challenging me. "Merry Christmas, Jacob. Open it." He slowly untied the ribbon, smiling sarcastically. When he opened the box and saw the white envelope inside, he frowned slightly. The room fell silent. My mother raised her head. My father stopped scrolling on his phone. Jacob opened the envelope. His eyes blinked as he scanned the pages. Bank statements, a list of his expenses from the account I'd used to help him with, and a handwritten note. "I'm not making your wallet anymore." He paled. Grandmother asked softly, "What's the matter, son?" But Jacob didn't answer. I turned and left, without another word. The car door slammed shut behind me like a full stop. But I knew this was just the beginning. Jacob and I grew up in the same house, the same school, but two completely different worlds. I remember the first time I was number 1 in my class in 3rd grade. I brought home my certificate of merit, my eyes shining, expecting to be praised. But my father just glanced at it and put it on the table. What good is being good at those things? Girls who study well will eventually get married. The next day, Jacob was selected to play for the school football team. Dad took the whole family out to eat, ordered the most expensive dish, and bragged to all the relatives. I always tried my best, tidying up my books, helping my mother cook, doing the laundry, taking care of my cousins when my parents were busy. Jacob only had to throw bread crusts on the floor for my mother to scold me. "Why didn't you clean it up for him?" I once drew a poster for the school festival and spent 3 nights in a row. When it was time to put it up on the wall, Jacob tore off a part of it because it was too colorful and annoying. I got angry and yelled. My mother slapped me and said, "What a naughty girl." Jacob just smiled. That smile, contemptuous, confident, always certain that there would never be consequences. He grew up like that, forgiven before he even made a mistake, loved as if my existence was just a shadow to accompany his glory. I learned to be quiet and humble, but deep down, a part of me knew, if I didn't get out, I would be buried under the title, "The Girl in the House," forever. I wanted to be an architect. It was my childhood dream. I drew endlessly, building dream cities out of Lego. I studied day and night to win a full scholarship to a prestigious university in Boston. I got the acceptance letter. The whole family knew. But then, a few days later, my mother called me into the kitchen. Jacob had just been fired. His wife was pregnant. My father said bluntly, "You're a girl. Why study far away from home? Stay and help the family for a while. Dreams can wait. Blood ties can't." I kept quiet, and I stayed. I turned down the scholarship. I applied to a local university studying business administration, which I didn't love, just so I could work and study at the same time, to send money to Jacob. I told myself, just a few years, but those few years turned into a lifetime. I quietly gave up on my dream, like the women in my family always did, a sacrifice that no one saw. When I was 28, my company designed a community housing project. I worked day and night, proposing ideas, leading the design team, meeting with partners. On the day of the presentation, the director invited Jacob to come along, because he had a degree in civil engineering. The project was approved, but on the final report, Jacob got the credit. I disappeared, not even my name. I went to see the director. He smiled. Jacob is a man, easier to gain trust. You should be glad you contributed. When I told my mother, she just replied, daughters shouldn't compete. It's good enough that they get the job done. Don't try to compete with your brother. I learned to keep quiet from then on. But in that silence, I knew I was losing pieces of myself. Until that Christmas, when they told me to eat in the car, when they took away my seat in the house I grew up in. I know, if I don't stand up, there will be nothing left to hold on to. I thought he would keep quiet. But just 2 days later, Jacob showed up at my door. No knocking, no calling. He banged on the door like a madman in the middle of the night. You bitch! You think you can ruin my life and then live in peace? Open the door. I know you're in there, you viper. His fists echoed off the wooden planks, followed by a loud kick that shook the door. You owe me your life, you hypocrite. Without me, who are you? A nameless fish living off the pity of the world. I clutched the phone tightly, calling the police. My voice was strangely calm, while my heart was pounding like a drum. 10 minutes later, he left. But before he left, he slipped an envelope under the door. Inside were my private photos from a business trip and a note. Good people don't hide their faces. I'll show everyone who you really are. I didn't open it. I dialed the police, calmer than I thought I would. By the time they arrived, he was gone. But the next morning, I got an envelope slipped under my door. There was no return address. Inside were copies of photos I had taken on a business trip abroad, private ones. Some were accompanied by a scrawled note. Nice guys don't double-cross. Be careful with your career. I closed the door, my hands shaking. But I didn't cry. I called Kelly. He started threatening me. Kelly was silent on the other end of the line. Her baby cried, then stopped. When she spoke, it wasn't the timid Kelly I knew. It was a mother who had had enough. On the other end of the line, Kelly was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was low, but each word seemed to cut through the air. Sister, do you know that he once locked me out on the balcony in the middle of winter? Just because I gave the wrong answer about the time of a movie he liked. I was silent, my hand gripping the phone tightly. He confiscated my bank card, sister. He made me ask for every penny and mocked me every time I asked, what money? I'm his wife. One time my daughter had a high fever. I was going to take her to the hospital. He held the key and said, you choose, the child or your pride. Sister, I'm not surprised. He threatened me that he would take the children if I dared to leave. One night, he threw a bowl of rice on the ground, forced me to kneel down and wipe it, and said, that's the price of free food. I thought I was enduring it for the children, but actually, I was keeping them in hell. I choked. I asked your mother for help. You know what she said? He's a man, don't overdo it. No one was there for me. No one believed in me, except you. I felt my blood run cold. I've had enough, and I hate myself for thinking it was normal. Now I know, I'm weak. Kelly was silent for a moment. Then her voice rang out firmer than ever. Sister, we won't back down. I'll file for an official divorce. And you sue. Don't just threaten. I did. My lawyer filed formal lawsuits. Jacob received the papers a week later. That same afternoon, he called his parents. And then the new wave came. My father called me that same night. His voice was choked with anger. What are you doing? Taking your brother to court? Humiliating this whole family? I replied gently. So when I was humiliated by my whole family, when I ate in the car, where did you see family honor? Silence. Then hang up. A week later, I was notified. Jacob had tried to transfer a property to my father's joint name to avoid financial disclosure. But it was too late. My lawyer filed a petition to freeze the assets. The court approved. Jacob went crazy. This time he came to my office. Without going through the receptionist, he stood right outside the building, screaming at the reporters he had brought with him. This is my sister, a traitorous woman, destroying the family for money. I walked out, walked straight to him, and looked straight into the lens. I'm not destroying my family. I'm saving myself from a toxic family. And if that means being hated, I accept it. I turned and walked away, leaving him and the reporters behind. For the first time, I felt no fear, no shame, just freedom. The next day, Kelly filed for divorce. She attached a detailed affidavit. She was willing to testify. 2 weeks later, the trial began. Jacob had no lawyer. His parents weren't there. No one was by his side. I walked into the courtroom with my head held high. I knew this fight had only just begun. But for the first time, I was not alone. The trial took place on a cold morning in late January. I wore a long black coat, no makeup, my hair tied back, and I carried a folder of documents that I had been preparing for weeks. Next to me was my lawyer, a calm, middle-aged woman with bright eyes and an unhurried smile. Jacob was late. No one was with him. His suit was wrinkled. His face was haggard. His hair was disheveled, as if he had just woken from a nightmare, which he probably was. The judge was an older woman. She looked over the papers, asking each question clearly, calmly but sharply. Every time Jacob tried to interrupt or deny his guilt, she would simply tap the gavel and say, "Mr. Jacob, this is not a stage. This is a court." Kelly testified first. She told of the secret accounts, the unaccounted for expenses, the debts. She spoke slowly, without shaking, without anger, just tired and honest. When she mentioned her daughter, the child whose name Jacob used to open the gambling accounts, the courtroom fell silent. My lawyer presented detailed evidence, wire transfers, text messages, statements, emails. I didn't need to say much, just confirmation. Each word was like another stone to the final door closing behind Jacob. When the judge asked him if he had anything to say, Jacob stood up, his eyes bloodshot. It was all because I trusted her too much. I thought she was my sister. Family. I thought she understood. Family helps each other. Family is not synonymous with abuse, I replied, not waiting for a turn. A family does not have the right to destroy a daughter's life just because she said no. There was a tense silence. Then the judge nodded, as if that was enough. Verdict: Jacob must repay the full $42,500 plus a breach of trust penalty. Kelly gets full custody of the kids and a temporary restraining order against Jacob. I'm not asking for damages. I don't need them. The facts speak for themselves. After the hearing, I walked outside. It was sunny, a rarity in winter. Kelly was waiting. She hugged me tightly. I don't know what I would do without you. I just shook my head. I can stand on my own. You just showed me. A week later, I got an email from an independent design firm in Seattle. The director, a woman, said she had seen me present at a conference years ago, before Jacob was credited for me. I remember you. You're the one behind the drawings. If you still dream about architecture, I have a supervisory position waiting for you." I cried. But this time it wasn't because of pain. The day I flew to Seattle, my parents didn't see me off. They didn't call. They didn't text. I thought I would be sad. But I wasn't. I've lived my whole life trying to be seen. Now I see myself. Clear. Steady. And I knew. I didn't need a chair at their party anymore. I had a life of my own. And this time, I was the one who chose the table, the chair, and who sat with me. A month after the trial, on my birthday, I cooked myself a small dinner. A round table, just 2 chairs, one for me, and one for the little girl inside me. The child who drew houses with crayons, dreamed of being an architect, and sat huddled in the car on Christmas Eve without anyone asking if I was cold. I raised my glass of wine, smiling at myself in the mirror. I wasn't forgotten. I just waited for you to grow up enough to come back and find me. Outside, the snow fell quietly. No one called. No one bothers. For the first time in my life, I felt at peace. Kelly moved back to live near her mother, started a part-time administrative job, and took evening classes in counseling. She said she wanted to make something out of her pain. She and I kept in touch, not often, but enough to remind each other that once we stood up together. Jacob lost his job. Soon after, the company discovered his shady financial history. He was forced out without a word. No one would hire someone with a bad credit record and a family lawsuit. Rumors spread throughout the small community where he lived. Eventually he moved away. No one knew where. I heard he lived alone, in a shabby rented apartment in the suburbs, sending the occasional anonymous text message. I didn't reply. As for my parents, they didn't come to court or call afterwards. Maybe they were embarrassed. Maybe they were angry. But deep down, I know they kept quiet because they knew that if they spoke up, they would have to face everything they had done or not done over the years. My mother once sent a birthday card with nothing but the words, "If you ever feel homesick, remember that I'm always open." I folded it up and put it in a drawer. I don't hate them. I just stopped waiting for them to change. Eventually, I didn't need anyone to open the door for me anymore. I learned to build my own door and keep the key to myself.